Are you ready for climate lockdowns? What, you think I'm making that up? Avoiding a climate lockdown by the WBCSD, that rolls off the tongue. That stands for the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. 3M, Apple, Bloomberg, BMW, Chevron, BP, Dow, DuPont, Google, IBM, IKEA, Kellogg's, Nestle, Procter & Gamble, it just keeps going. This was published way back in October 2020, so it's not even a new thing. They say in the near future, the world may need to resort to lockdowns again, this time to tackle a climate emergency. Wait, how could the climate create an emergency that we need a lockdown to solve? Who cares? They say under a climate lockdown, governments would limit private vehicle use, ban the consumption of red meat, and impose extreme energy-saving measures. Fossil fuel companies would have to stop drilling. To avoid such a scenario, we have to overhaul economics and do capitalism differently.
So we're learning more now about the sad toll of the corona lockdowns in this country. According to Joe Biden, though, we could get another round of lockdowns. These for a crisis that's every bit as bad as the coronavirus, maybe worse. That crisis, of course, says Joe Biden, is climate change.
Today, I'm pleased to announce a team that will lead my administration's ambitious plan to address the existential threat of our time, climate change. Folks, we're in a crisis. Just like we need to be a unified nation in response to COVID-19, we need a unified national response to climate change. And from this crisis, from these crises, I should say, we need to seize the opportunity to build back and build back better than we were before.
A unified national response. It's involuntary, that's the one thing we know. What does it mean? Well, we're learning that a World Health Organization staffer has written a report saying that a climate lockdown could be called for. Just like a COVID lockdown, a climate lockdown. Mark Vernon is an author who has written a lot about climate change. He founded Climate Depot. He joins us tonight. Mark, thanks so much for coming on. A climate lockdown. Now, I would laugh this off the table, except we all just lived through the last 18 months, so we know that anything is possible. What does this mean exactly?
Well, in my book, Green Fraud, I detail 2 chapters on this, Tucker. This is the climate activists were, first of all, jealous when the COVID lockdowns happened. They were beside themselves saying, how is this happening? Everyone from Greta Thunberg to John Kerry, UN officials. And then they started saying, we need to follow this. If we can shut down for a virus, we can shut down for climate. And that's what we're seeing. There's even academics in Australia proposing adding climate change to death certificates. And Bill Gates has said the death toll will be greater. So they're following every step of the way. And it's not just, a professor here or someone in academia. We have a major UK report coming out. We have an international agency report that came out calling for essentially the same type of lockdowns. Everything from restrictions on your thermostat to restrictions of moving. You can only fly in a climate emergency when it's, quote, morally justifiable. Kind of like a lockdown, you have to justify going to the store for essential services. They're going after freedom of movement. They're going after private car ownership. They're going after everything it means to be a free person and turning it over to the administrative state.
Would this include shutting down the iPhone factories in China? Would China and India participate in this climate lockdown, or is it kind of you first, America?
Well, as we know, the lockdowns had never been proposed. We felt like lemmings following the Chinese Communist Party in terms of them recommending lockdowns. The World Health Organization went after it. The World Health Organization employees are now recommending these climate lockdowns. The one countries that won't be affected is China. As you say, as we're sitting home binge-watching Netflix, we're not going to be able to have the freedoms we used to have. In the UK, they proposed CO2 ration cards that the government or employers would monitor your CO2 levels, your energy use, your travel, the type of car you drive. If you exceed a level, you pay penalties. If you're under, you get credits. This is the world. A CO2 budget for every man, woman, and child on the planet has been proposed by a German climate advisor. This is what we're looking at. I talked to a German who talked about East Germany. They used to have these kind of restrictions in East Germany before you could leave the country. But we're talking about proposing these now on Americans within the country. And we had this, of course, with COVID. They were talking about bans on interstate travel at one point, a national ban, some of Biden's advisors. So anything is possible. Chuck Schumer is urging Biden to declare a national climate emergency. Just like a blue state governor, he could have emergency powers.
I feel such deep shame that Americans complied with what we've just been through, and I hope that they will not comply with this. I really do. Mark, thanks so much.
I'm old enough to have a grandson. Like you, he's learning how climate change is causing the big storms and floods, the droughts, fires, and food shortages we're seeing around the world. When I was his age, people had no idea about the damage they were doing. But by the time I was a teenager, I started to see that if we didn't stop polluting our planet, we would face a very dangerous future indeed. And you have an important part to play in this. That's why I'm delighted that in this film, we'll be hearing from 6 young climate activists from 6 different continents who have all seen the impact of climate change where they live and have ideas about what needs to be done to help the planet become healthy again. Their voices matter, and so does yours.
Over there, the smoke just coming out of those chimneys and then puffing out the grey, horrible smoke. And sometimes I feel a little bit scared about it because if that amount of pollution is getting in my lungs, that could be really damaging.
Monitors installed in the classrooms show a recent rise in pollution levels, inadvertently caused, believes Paul Urry, by government guidelines on COVID.
So you open the window to let COVID out, but then you're letting all the air pollution in?
Yes, it's trying to find the right balance, really.
I feel kind of depressed and I feel really upset because it means that people can get sick and really poorly.
They really are making strides with all that climate change, aren't they? It must be the banning of the straws. Hang on a minute. What's this? This is a diver in the Philippines picking up dirty, horrible, used masks off the coral. You know, those billions of disposable masks just discarded in the sea. For people like Greta and alike to completely ignore. She must be busy doing something else.
How has Joe Biden done on climate issues in his first 50 days in office? What grade would you give him?
Well, you shouldn't take that from me. I'm just a teenager, so I don't have the mandate to sort of give grades like that. My opinions on this doesn't matter. You should rather look at the science.
That's right. She's busy complaining about the fact that not enough is being done with climate change, and we should be looking at the science. But as she said, she's just a teenager. What does she know, eh? I'll tell you what, for a teenager, she's 18 now, by the way, as well, right? I mean, I know she still looks 10, but she's 18. For an 18-year-old, she's certainly perfected the art of passive aggression, isn't she?
What would you like to see him do to fight climate change that he isn't doing, that he said he won't do? Because his administration is saying we've set up a climate office, we've set up a climate czar, we've re-signed Paris, we're conserving more land, we're undoing a lot of what Donald Trump did. What would you like to see him do that he's not doing?
I would just like him to basically just treat the climate crisis like a crisis.
Nothing will ever be enough, and while she continues to complain about that fact, she'll completely ignore all the dirty, horrible masks floating in the sea like the ones strapped around her chin. But I suppose it depends on the agenda and what they choose to ignore.
Has also created an opportunity to build back better. Building back better.
Plan to build back better.
It's about building this country back better.
The Great Reset.
Build it back better.
We must build back better.
Build back better.
To build back better.
To build back better.
Build back better.
Build back better.
A unique opportunity to reset our global agenda.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The word is alive.